Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 384, March the 30th, 2018, Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. Well, before I get started on some of the really important news of the day, I just wanted to mention that yes, yesterday in the video I told you I would post a link where you could go take a look at those two text conversations between Peter's been stroking us and Loose Lisa Page, and I forgot to provide the link. I'm sorry, but fortunately someone pointed that out to me in the comments section. So if you go back to yesterday's video, day 383, you'll see that I have in the comments section, I actually put the link in directly to the person who made the comment and pointed that out. So the link is there as a response, a reply to his comment. But I also went back in and on the very top line there where you all post your comments, I posted a comment and I just put in, hey, here's the link from that I forgot to provide in the description box. So it's right there in the main body of where everybody comments. I've put the link in there, and if I remember, I'll also put it into the link in today's video in the description box, so you can actually click on it and read this two different conversations, which clearly show that there was coordination going on between the FBI, DOJ, and the Obama administration. Obama and his cabinet members were, in fact, not only knowing about the Trump-Russia investigation, the counterintelligence operation, the frame-up, whatever you want to call it, they not only knew about it, they were participants in it. And it's made clear by this conversation between Ben Strokinus and Loose Lisa Page. And there's two different conversations that they have that point this out and make it quite clear that there was absolutely collaboration and collusion between the administration, Obama's administration, and the criminals over at the FBI, the DOJ, as well as Brennan and Harry Reid, all involved. And that's very clear. So I did post the link, which I think there was 4 or 5 places that I saw it. I think I posted the link from Gateway Pundit, where you can read those two text conversations, and it's very clear that there's collaboration going on. So there you go. I'll try to remember to post it in the link today, but I went ahead and posted it in the comments section from TowerGate Day 383. If you want to go back and click on that and read that text conversation. Okay. Well, the big news of today, Thursday, and this is coming to you from Chuck Ross at the Daily Caller. The big news of the day today is really 2 things. Sessions, Attorney General Sessions, came out today and stated that he has decided not to appoint a special counsel at this time. And that's in response to all these senators and congressmen who've sent him requests to appoint a special counsel. So Sessions comes out today and says at this time he is not going to appoint a special counsel. The other part of that is he comes out and says, okay, but I just want you to know that instead, what I am doing and what I have been doing is I'm using a U.S. attorney, a prosecutor, who is a man named John Huber from Utah, to oversee the matter. So, 2 things here. Sessions telling us at this time he's not going to appoint the special counsel that everybody's calling for. But at the same time he's saying, but the reason I'm not doing that is because I already have somebody. And so let's look at this situation for just a second here. To me, this is semantics, however you want to look at it. I mean, you could appoint a special counsel, then he falls under this office of special counsel, then he has to go out and put together a team, and then they have to begin getting all this evidence and all this information, interviewing all these witnesses and going through all this to start an investigation. But he, of course, will have subpoena power. He will have the ability to indict, to convene a grand jury. All things that the Inspector General does not or cannot do. So, by Sessions appointing this prosecutor from Utah, who's a U.S. attorney, an experienced prosecutor, and actually I understand a very highly decorated prosecutor for cases that he's prosecuted, essentially it's semantics to me, because this prosecutor, John Huber from Utah, has the authority to launch indictments, interview individuals, whether they work for the FBI or DOJ anymore or not. He can interview people outside. In other words, Brennan, Clapper. He can interview Christopher Steele. He can interview anyone he needs to. He's got the same type of powers that Mueller has or any other special counsel. Obviously, when you have a special counsel, special prosecutor, whatever you want to call it, you automatically, hand in hand, have a grand jury seated. So, as Sessions tells us that there is a U.S. attorney prosecutor already working with Horowitz, who he has appointed, that also tells us that there's a grand jury, because they're the ones that hear the testimony from the people who are questioned, the witnesses, or people who are cooperating, and that type of thing. So he didn't say there's a grand jury that's been impaneled, but obviously when you have a special prosecutor or a prosecutor assigned to this, essentially you have a grand jury as well. Probably been in place for some time. So I see it as a matter of semantics. If this individual, Mr. Huber, can interview anyone he needs to, whether they work for the DOJ, FBI or not, whether they've quit, been fired, left, whatever, he can interview anyone outside, anyone he needs to interview. He can indict. He can bring these people in front of the grand jury for their testimony under oath. He can do all these things. He has the same powers, essentially, that Mueller has. The only difference, really, in this case, is instead of bringing in a special counsel who then puts together his own team, and then they fall under this Office of Independent Counsel, Mr. Huber is working directly for Sessions, not the Office of Special Counsel, which means, and according to Sessions, Mr. Huber is communicating with him regularly and keeping him updated on his investigation. So that's actually a good thing. Now, Mr. Huber probably has people, because he's working out of his office in Utah. He's not in Washington. Mr. Huber is in Utah. And he's probably got people on his staff there in Utah working with him. But what he's got back here in Washington is he has got Horowitz. Now keep in mind, if a special counsel came in, he would have to start from scratch, building a team, interviewing all the witnesses, requesting all the documents. Well, Horowitz and his people, which he has 400 to 500 individuals who are investigators and lawyers, many of them former prosecutors, already working for him. They've already been working on this for over a year and 3 months. They've already gotten over 1.2 million pages of documents. They've already interviewed quite a few people. So, essentially, Huber didn't have to put together a gigantic staff like Mueller of people to work under him. Essentially, what Sessions has said to him, you're going to be my prosecutor on this deal, you're going to work directly for me, and you're going to be working hand in hand with Horowitz, because Horowitz has already been working on this for over a year. He's got all the documents. He's way far into his investigation already. So I just want you to join him and now start taking a look at where there may have been, criminal liability, criminal wrongdoing. And you have the power to, launch indictments or whatever. But Sessions also said that if Mr. Huber tells him at any point that he would like a special counsel, then Sessions said he would likely grant that. So I see this as just semantics. Now, the initial response from several members of the Freedom Caucus, including Mark Meadows and a couple others their initial response, they're not happy. Let's put it that way. They're not happy. And I kind of understand it, but again, I just see it as semantics. The most important thing is that Mr. Huber is acting as a prosecutor. He can indict. He can question witnesses. He can subpoena documents. He can convene a grand jury, which has likely already been done. I still think we have to wait and see what Horowitz's reports look like. Now, the main thing that I am watching, if you want to know what I'm focused on with Inspector Horowitz's reports, I'm looking at one thing really hard. When these reports come out, will they describe the activities that went on by the Obama administration, the Department of Justice and FBI, the intelligence community, maybe the State Department, maybe other departments of the government? Will he describe the activities that went on as merely misconduct or bad conduct, or will he describe them as criminal? Will he separate out things? Okay, well, this was done and this was done by this person, they did this and they did this. Well, this was very bad conduct. This was misconduct. Or will he say, oh, in this particular case, this here would be actually a crime. It would be a violation of this code or whatever. So that's what I'm most focused on, is are we going to get a report that points out a whole lot of things that went on and we're going to be told, oh, well, this was just a bunch of bad conduct. Because bad conduct is legal language. It means, naughty, naughty boy, you shouldn't have done that, Peter Benstrokinus. Hand slap, tongue lashing, you get demoted, no Christmas bonus. Or are we going to get, Peter Benstrokinus, that was a crime, and the prosecutor is going to indict you for that crime. So that's what I'm watching. Are we going to get a whole bunch of reports, thousands and thousands of pages of reports on the investigation, which all turn out to be nothing but a bunch of misconduct? Or are we actually going to get reports that show and specify criminal violations versus misconduct? Because there's likely going to be a lot of things that were done that probably would fall under misconduct, but not necessarily criminal. But there's also going to be things that are criminal and go far beyond misconduct. For example, fixing an investigation. Hillary Clinton's email investigation, from everything that we have learned, and we don't have everything, we're hoping that Horowitz fills in the blanks. We've got probably 10 or 20% of the information. But based on what we know from that 10 or 20%, it looks very much like that the FBI and the DOJ collaborated to fix the Hillary Clinton email investigation so that she would not be indicted, despite the fact that we know that she mishandled classified information. She transferred classified information onto a private server, which is multiple crimes involved in doing that. And then she destroyed evidence that was under subpoena. That's obstruction, destruction of evidence, and obstruction of the crime scene. So that is a crime. It's not misconduct. Fixing an investigation is not misconduct. It's a crime. Lying to the FISA court is not misconduct. It is a crime. Running a counterintelligence operation and a frame-up on a president-elect, then president, is a crime, not misconduct. Covering up the crime is another crime, not misconduct. So this is what I am going to be focused on when the IG report comes out. That's what I'm looking at. Are we looking at a situation where they just want us to all give a tongue lashing and slap some people on the wrist and, oh, that was very naughty what you did, that was misconduct? It's almost like what was done in the email investigation, where they said what Hillary did was careless, extremely careless. But they didn't use the words negligent, because negligent is a term, a legal term, which would get her indicted. Careless is not. That's what I'm watching. I don't want to see a bunch of legal wording which takes a bunch of crimes and turns them into misconduct. That is what I am looking at. Now, we also have a term that's thrown out there all the time, including by me, and that is this term, bombshell. Is Horowitz going to drop the bombshell? Well, you know, I think that's all in the perspective. Again, for those of us who, for me doing these videos, for those of you who watch these videos over the past year or so, you know that a lot of the things that Horowitz says is going to be covered in his reports as they're released are a lot of the things we've been talking about here. And we talk about them almost every day. So, to us, when Horowitz comes out with his reports, it's very likely that myself and many of you will not see anything there that's a bombshell, because it's stuff that we've all been talking about and we know about. But remember, 90% of the people out there aren't watching my YouTube videos. They aren't watching anybody's YouTube videos on these topics. They're busy with their lives. They don't have time. They're not paying attention. And until it pops up and they actually see it on their Twitter feed or their Facebook or something like that, or the headline news saying person X has been indicted, you know, Hillary has been indicted, McCabe has been indicted, Comey indicted, until this type of thing happens, they're not paying attention. So when they come out in the Inspector General report and say, okay, well, we learned that the FBI allowed third-party contractors to access the NSA database, well, to a lot of people, for them, the first time they're hearing that, they're going to freak out. Say, wow, they did what? Holy smoke, that's a bombshell. But to us, we've been talking about it since Judge Collier posted it on the FISA court's website back in late August of 2017. We know that the FBI allowed access to third-party contractors, likely Fusion GPS and CrowdStrike and maybe others. We know that. It's not going to be a bombshell to you. To me, we've been talking about it. It's not going to be a bombshell if we learn that there really were no actual Russian sources to the dossier. Rather, what it was a feedback loop, that everything was being created within the FBI, DOJ, Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr, Glenn Simpson, his wife, cooking up the dossier along with probably some of Hillary's inside people, Shearer and others. Then they were feeding that to Christopher Steele, who was simply putting it into a feedback loop and sending it back to put his stamp of approval on it, to give it credibility. It was a intelligence laundering operation. Now, when that comes out and it becomes known to everyone, they're going to say, oh, this is a bombshell. But it will not be a bombshell to you and I. I've been saying for probably, 4 or 5 months now, that my conclusion now is that there likely were no real Russian sources at all, and that this stuff was likely being created right in the bowels of Confusion GPS and then put into a loop, and it was coming from a couple different directions. Hillary using State Department people to feed Christopher Steele, using Nellie Orr to feed Christopher Steele, and he was nothing more than the launderman, the man who laundered the intelligence, stamped his name on it to give it credibility. So, because you certainly couldn't have Hillary walk into the FBI and say, here's this dossier that I paid for. You couldn't have Fusion GPS do it. You had to have somebody else do it. And they thought Christopher Steele was the man to do it. That's why he was selected and paid. He himself has pretty much said so. Said he never spoke to any Russian sources. He talked to intermediaries. Actually, he talked to collectors who went to intermediaries, who allegedly went to Russians, who were paid. Says he didn't go out and seek the information, it came to him. Says he didn't verify any of it either. Says some of it may be true or not true. He don't know. says he never authorized releasing any of it to the media, even though we know that he went out and gave interviews to the media. So what we see is that this was more of an intelligence laundering operation. That's a term that's not made it into the mainstream, because I think I actually made it up myself. But eventually that's a word that I think is going to catch on and people are going to be talking about. Because I think at the end, when we get to where we're going, this is what's going to be proven to be true. So this will not be a bombshell to you or to me. We've been talking about it for a very long time. There's other things that'll come out that may be important facts, that'll be important details, that Horowitz can fill in some of the blanks. But for the most part, we know that the email investigation was fixed. It was rigged. We know that there was a frame-up operation, a counterintelligence operation launched on Trump. I think that that's a known fact. All these details and other pieces of facts that all fill in the missing pieces and give us the perfectly clear picture, these will be important things to know. I'll be happy to know them, as you will. But for a lot of us, this will not be bombshell. Now, what I expect from Horowitz is that he is going to lay out in each of these reports specific things that he was focused on, looking at the email investigation, looking at the FISA court, looking at this, looking at that. He is going to tell us what they discovered in the investigation. And I imagine he will point out where there were areas where there was misconduct and where there's areas where he believes it was a criminal act, and that would then be referred to the prosecutor or something. And that's what I expect. So I don't expect bombshells there. Now, what would be a bombshell to me is if there was any facts that are just mind-blowing that we haven't had access to, like Comey emails or emails between Yates and Priestep, emails between anyone in the Clinton campaign and anyone in the State Department or anyone in the FBI or DOJ in the Clinton campaign, anything that would tie Obama, anything like that. In other words, anything that connects the dots. Because I don't think Horowitz, again, Horowitz is not going to introduce all these reports to paint a big picture of a big narrative, laying out this massive criminal conspiracy, all dots connected, everything laced up. I don't think that that's what Horowitz will do. I think that that's more like what a prosecutor would do, who is now in place. I think Horowitz will look at each individual area of the things he investigated, point out what was done, who did what, and possibly he will make a determination on whether or not it was a violation of the criminal code or if it was just misconduct. I don't expect Horowitz is going to lay out a big picture narrative of a wide conspiracy. He's going to give us a bunch of details about individual things. It will be someone else's job to tie all that together. But if he did do that, if he did come out in his report through a series of reports, or maybe where he does a final report encapsulating everything of the other reports, and then makes a general argument or a general case that there was a wide-ranging conspiracy that involved the Obama administration, the FBI and DOJ, in coordination with people in the Clinton campaign, using the State Department and others. Now, if he does something like that, I will call that a bombshell. That would be a bombshell, because that's where we're going. That's eventually where we're going to land. But I believe that that is probably going to come from the prosecutor. And the prosecutor will only come into play if there are prosecutable crimes laid out. But the prosecutor is there. He's obviously got a grand jury. He's obviously been getting testimony. He's obviously been getting people who have been cooperating with the investigation to try to reduce the charge they may be facing. And once the indictments start coming down on people, which I expect should happen shortly after the reports start coming out, we should start seeing indictments falling. That's what I expect. And I don't see any of that kind of stuff as being bombshell. So I'm not looking for this big bombshell. What I'm looking for is the IG to lay out specifically where there was bad conduct or misconduct, which is not criminal, or actual criminal conduct, which is criminal and must be prosecuted. That's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm focused on. Everything else is just, almost like a distraction. Yes, I would like to get more details. We've gotten Strzok and Page texts, but only a couple thousand of them. Hell, there's 50,000 Strzok and Page texts. We've heard about 3. There's all those communications between Comey, Yates, Lynch, Obama, his chief of staff, McDonough. So we have all these other people whose communications we have not seen anything. But Horowitz has certainly got it all. So I'm looking at some of that information that's not come out yet. Some of the details to be filled in. But ultimately, a big bombshell for a lot of us. I don't know that we're going to get this big bombshell. But I think we get a lot of important information. A lot of things will fill in some gaps and tie it all together. But I don't think Horowitz will be the one who will do that. I think that will be a prosecutor who will do that. And I think it will happen. So that's kind of my take on that. Again, a lot of people upset because Sessions says, well, I'm not going to appoint a special counsel. But I wouldn't read too much into that. I wouldn't focus on that too much. It's semantics. He's got a guy who's there, who's a prosecutor, who can indict, who can subpoena people, who can put together a grand jury. And he's got Horowitz's entire 400 to 500 person staff at his disposal to work with. And he's got everything that Horowitz has generated over the past year and a half. So he's got a running start at everything he's doing. So I would say just sit back and relax. Don't get bent out of shape. Wait for the reports to start coming out from the Inspector General. And let's focus on the most important thing. Are they going to try to pass all of this off as bad conduct, or are they going to tell us it was criminal? And again, fixing an email investigation is criminal. Lying to the FISA court is criminal. Framing an American citizen, especially one who just won the presidency, is definitely criminal. And covering it all up is definitely criminal. That's what I'm looking at. I'm not going to get distracted. Not me. Keeping a cool head, keeping my powder dry. I'm not breathing fire yet. I'll know when the time is to blow the roof off the place, if that time comes. And I'll let you know when that time comes, if it does come. For his part, Judge Napolitano told Fox News that the FISA court investigation will yield tons of abuses. Yeah, you bet it will, just from what we know. I agree. Criminal, not misconduct. The Democrats, apparently from the National Democratic Party, looks like their strategy that they're advising their Democrats in red states, they're telling them that they should campaign on the fact that they will work with Trump. And they should focus on economic opportunities. There you go. The Democrats are going to try to get reelected in the red states by running with Trump. We'll see if the people are stupid enough to believe that. Many of them are. Hillary showed up to give a speech at Rutgers, and she was wearing an arm cast. Maybe another slip fall, you think? Another ride in the Scooby van? Another injection from Dr. Feelgood? What do you think? But the most interesting thing about what was pointed out in this particular article was her speaking fee. It was $25,000. Do you realize that before she lost and was defeated in the presidential election, prior to that, her speaking fees were between $200,000 and $250,000? She's gone from getting $200,000 to $250,000 per speech down to just $25,000. Man, that's a pay cut. I wouldn't give her 25 cents for a speech. The fact that she even gets 25K is alarming. But man, she's got to be feeling it. She's used to getting $200,000 to $250,000. Now she's getting 25. Well, Andrew McCabe has set up a legal defense fund on GoFundMe, and apparently he's doing pretty well. He's expecting the need to raise a lot of money for the lawyers he's going to have to pay to try to keep him out of jail. I don't think it's going to work. We had Trump calling Roseanne Barr and congratulating her on the success of her debut for her new sitcom, which is kind of a refurbished version of her old sitcom, which I used to actually watch. It was pretty good. I like John Goodman. Thought Roseanne was kind of funny. But apparently that show blew the roof off the ratings last night. It was crushed, man, just absolutely crushed. And as it turns out, Trump actually had met Roseanne before. In the early 90s, apparently, he met her in New York. So I'm sure she was happy to get a call from Trump, and I'm sure he's very happy about what she's doing, actually showing a different side of the country, the part of the country that's never represented, which is a country like part of the country like where I live and where many of you live. Well done, Roseanne. She's got a lot of courage. I'll say that for her. She does have a lot of courage. The rumors are still out there about Paul Ryan, and there are people saying he is going to resign in the next 90 days. That it's, you know, the real deal. That it's something he's been thinking about for a while. He's pretty frustrated. He thinks being speaker is like being a babysitter. He's not real happy with the job, really didn't want it. He does have several kids that are about teenage years. Apparently his father wasn't around very much when he was growing up, and he feels bad about that. He doesn't need the money. His wife's loaded. Her family's got tons of money, and he'll have no problem. He'll be a lobbyist to make probably 10 times what he makes now. So it's looking more and more like Ryan just may step down, and the most likely replacement for him, not by the establishment, by the way, but a person who has a very good chance would be Steve Scalise. Man, I would love to have Steve Scalise as Speaker. That would be a 10,000% improvement over big ears Paul Ryan. Much improvement. Steve Scalise is a pro-Trump guy all the way. He's all for the Make America Great Again agenda. So go Steve Scalise. Would love him to be the next Speaker. And Paul Ryan, go, man. Don't even wait 90 days. Just go now. Hope it's true. Andrew McCabe had his final meeting today with the FBI about his firing. I guess he had one last chance to make his pitch. It obviously didn't fly because he remains fired. He is fired, and they, I guess, went through the final procedure with him today to let him know exactly how that's going to play out in terms of he's not getting his benefits or whatever and things and such. So it looks like that's the end for McCabe. His last chance for a reprieve, not going to work. McCabe is fired. He's gone. And I think, you know, we're going to learn that it was a lot more that he did than just leaking a story to the New York Times and then lying about it several times when being questioned. There's a lot of things that he was involved in that are very serious and criminal in nature, and that's why he's got to be fired. And the fact that they're not giving his attorney very much information that he had requested tells us that it's because it's information that's going to be used in a criminal hearing. Thank you so much for tuning in. TowerGate, day 384. Enjoy your Friday evening. I'll be back on Saturday with the weekend edition, and we'll see what shoe drops next. You guys take care. Stay dry. See ya.